can you solve all these nuclear chemistry questions? The sun is powered by...
Smart pick. Nuclear fusion is the correct choice.
Nuclear medicine uses.
Valid point. Radioactive pharmaceuticals is true. Combining of atomic nuclei. Bravo. Nuclear fusion is the answer.
SI unit for nuclear activity.
Right choice. BQ is the best answer.
Reaction involving the nucleus.
Great thinking. Nuclear reaction is the right choice.
All nuclear reactions affect the...
Solid response. Nucleus is a valid choice.
How does the sun produce energy?
You got it. Your choice, nuclear fusion, is right.
What holds the nucleus together?
Good job. Your answer, strong nuclear force, works well here.
How do nuclear power plants work?
Clear logic. Your choice, fission, is sound and 100% true.
Devices used to nuclear radiation.
You chose Geiger counter, film badge. And it is correct!
50th, complete the nuclear reaction.
Excellent choice. Option 3 is the right answer.
Uncontrolled fission chain reaction.
Well reasoned. Atomic bomb is the correct choice.
Nuclear fusion occurs typically in...
Nicely done. The sun is a solid answer.
Which is true about nuclear energy.
Excellent. Harmful radiation is a brilliant choice.
Nuclear power plants under normal use.
Nice work. You chose none of the above and it is correct.
What do nuclear power plants produce?
Perfect. Electricity is the correct choice.
Which is a benefit of nuclear energy.
On track. Reliable source of energy is the correct answer.
Nuclear power source comes from dash.
Smart move. Uranium or plutonium is an accurate answer.
Nuclear particles are held together by...
Well done. The strong nuclear force is the right choice.
What is the cleanest source of energy?
Sharp thinking. Nuclear is the right choice.
This is the strongest force in an atom.
Strong choice. Nuclear forces is the right answer.
The nuclear energy is measured as dash.
Nice selection. MIV is the correct and valid answer.
A representation of a nuclear reaction.
Right again. Nuclear equation is a valid answer.
Splitting of a nucleus into fragments.
You're right. Nuclear fission is the correct answer.
During nuclear fission, a nucleus dash.
Correct response. Divides is the most accurate answer.
Which process produces alpha particles?
Exactly. Alpha decay makes sense and it is right choice.
The term used to date rocks and fossils.
Great job. Radioactive dating is the accurate answer.
The product of nuclear fission includes...
Correct. Several nuclei and neutrons is the right answer.
Nuclear radiation that occurs naturally.
Well picked. Background radiation is the correct answer.
Dash is the splitting of atomic nuclei. Good thinking. Fission is the right answer.
Dash are involved in nuclear reactions.
Nice selection. Nucleus is the correct and valid answer.
What nuclear process occurs in the Sun? Great thinking. Fusion is the right choice. Nuclear power plant uses dash for fuel. Correct. Uranium is the right answer. Merging of lighter nucleus to heavy ones. Well done. Nuclear fusion is the right choice. Nuclear power uses dash to create energy. On track. Uranium is the correct answer. How is plutonium used in a practical way? Correct response. Nuclear reactors is the most accurate answer. The process of splitting atoms is called. Good thinking. Nuclear fission is the right answer. This is how heavier elements are formed. Well picked. Supernova is the correct answer. What causes an isotope to be radioactive? Nice work. You chose an unstable proton-neutron ratio, and it is correct. Why don't we use nuclear fusion on Earth? Valid point. Requires high temps is true. Stability of a nucleus is dependent upon. Smart move. Strong nuclear force is an accurate answer. Nuclear dash occurs naturally on the Sun. Great job. Fusion is the accurate answer. What is an atom with an unstable nucleus? Solid response. Radioisotope is a valid choice. Which type of nuclear decay is occurring? You're right. Alpha decay is the correct answer. Splitting of heavy nucleus to lighter one. You chose nuclear fission, and it is correct. In nuclear reactions, changes occur to the. Nicely done. Nucleus is a solid answer. Which releases a greater amount of energy? Good job. Your answer, nuclear fusion, works well here. Reaction happening in nuclear power plants. Sharp thinking. Nuclear fission is the right choice. What is the nuclear symbol for a positron? You got it. Your choice 0 plus 1b is right. Where does nuclear fusion occur naturally? Excellent choice. In the Sun is the right answer. What is a stable, radiating nucleus called? Bravo. Radioactive isotopes is the answer. What order are all nuclear decay reactions? Strong choice. First is the right answer. One benefit of nuclear fission reactions is perfect. Production of energy is the correct choice. In an atom, the strong nuclear force acts on. Smart pick. Protons and neutrons is the correct choice. While 12, the splitting of nuclei is known as dash. Clear logic. Your choice, nuclear fission, is sound and 100% true. What are the two types of nuclear reactions? Right choice. Fusion and fission is the best answer. Makes plutonium-239 and makes more than you. Right again. Breeder reactor is a valid answer. Name the nucleus undergoing nuclear fission. Exactly. U-235 makes sense, and it is right choice.
Which nuclear emission has the greatest mass?
Excellent. Alpha particle is a brilliant choice. What mineral is used to create nuclear power? Well reasoned. Uranium is the correct choice.
What isotope is used in nuclear power plants?
Clear logic. Your choice, uranium-235, is sound and 100% true.
What are the requirements for nuclear fusion?
Well reasoned. High temperature and density is the correct choice.
The spontaneous emission of radiation is dash. Smart move. Radioactivity is an accurate answer.
Which nuclear particle has the greatest mass? On track. Alpha is the correct answer.
Which uses controlled nuclear chain reactions? Correct response. Nuclear reactors is the most accurate answer.
In a nuclear reactor, what slows down neutrons?
Good thinking. Moderator is the right answer.
What kind of force holds the nucleus together?
Well done. Strong nuclear force is the right choice.
Which country tested the most nuclear weapons? You're right. United States is the correct answer. A high-energy photon emitted by a radioisotope? Bravo. Gamma ray is the answer.
The goal in chemistry is always to become more.
Strong choice. Stable is the right answer.
One product of all nuclear fusion reactions is
Valid point. A larger nucleus is true.
reaction happening as the sun generates energy.
Exactly. Nuclear fusion makes sense, and it is right choice.
An isotope that is unstable is referred to as air.
Right choice. Radioisotope is the best answer.
Uses radiation to destroy targeted cancer cells.
Excellent. Nuclear medicine is a brilliant choice.
What is the biggest problem with testing bombs?
Great thinking. Radiation from nuclear fallout is the right choice.
Nuclear reactions that emit a helium nucleuses.
Right again. Alpha decay is a valid answer.
Site of the worst nuclear accident in the world.
Well picked. Chernobyl is the correct answer.
What is some of the fallout from nuclear bombs?
Nice work. You chose all of the above, and it is correct.
This type of nuclear decay has the highest mass.
Great job. Alpha decay is the accurate answer. During nuclear reactions, mass is converted into perfect. Energy is the correct choice.
What is the release of radioactive waste called?
Nice selection. Radioactive decay is the correct and valid answer.
Which nuclear reaction releases the most energy?
Excellent choice. Fusion is the right answer.
Which type of nuclear decay has the symbol 0 + 1e?
You chose positron, and it is correct.
Complete the nuclear reaction 2760 Co equal to dash plus 10.
Correct. 2869 is the right answer.
What element is often used in nuclear reactions?
Smart pick. Uranium is the correct choice.
Which nuclear power plant has not had a meltdown?
Good job. Your answer, Taishon, works well here.
Which nuclear mission has no charge and no mass?
Solid response. Gamma particle is a valid choice.
What turns the turbines in a nuclear power plant?
Nicely done. Steam is a solid answer.
Which type of nuclear reaction occurs on the Sun?
Sharp thinking. Fusion is the right choice. Nuclear chemistry involves the change in the dash. You got it. Your choice, nucleus, is right. Which of the following is not a nuclear reaction? Correct. Natural transmission is the right answer.
Which term identifies a type of nuclear reaction?
Nice selection. Fission is the correct and valid answer.
Complete the nuclear reaction 85209 equal to dash plus 24.
Bravo. 83205 is the answer.
Nuclear radiation can be detected by dash and dash.
Excellent. Giga counters, film badges is a brilliant choice. Breaking up the nucleus of an atom is called dash. Smart move. Fission is an accurate answer. This type of nuclear decay is the least penetrating. You're right. Alpha decay is the correct answer.
Nuclear power plants are usually built next to dash.
Sharp thinking. Large body of water is the right choice.
How is the gamma ray written in a nuclear equation?
Right choice. Honor C is the best answer.
The force that holds the nucleus together is called.
Good thinking. Strong nuclear force is the right answer.
What is needed to start a nuclear fission reaction?
Nice work. You chose a neutron and it is correct. Nuclear reactions involve the particles in the dash. Great job. Nucleus is the accurate answer.
What are the products of a nuclear fusion reaction?
Exactly. One nucleus and energy makes sense and it is right choice. Which fundamental force holds the nucleus together? Solid response. Strong nuclear force is a valid choice. In nuclear reactors, the role of control rods is 2. Good job. Your answer absorb neutrons works well here. Nuclear transmutation affects what part of the atom? Correct response. The nucleus is the most accurate answer. What kind of radiation does nuclear fission release? Strong choice. Gamma is the right answer.
The function of control rods is nuclear plants is 2.
You chose control absorption of neutron. And it is correct. Nuclear reactions start with these unstable isotopes. Well reasoned. Radioisotopes is the correct choice. Rays and particles emitted from a radioactive source. Perfect. Nuclear radiation is the correct choice. Hydrogen nuclei combine to form helium nuclei during. Excellent choice. Nuclear fusion is the right answer. What controls the reaction within a nuclear reactor? Clear logic. Your choice control rods is sound and 100% true. Which one is not considered to be nuclear radiation? On track. Quarks is the correct answer. The nuclear power used for electricity is produced by. Great thinking. Fission is the right choice. the fuel used in a nuclear reactor usually comes from.
Well done. Uranium-238 is the right choice.
The radiation emitted by radioisotopes is called dash.
Right again. Ionizing radiation is a valid answer.
The conversion of an element or isotope into another. You got it. Your choice, nuclear transmutation, is right.
What is mass converted into during nuclear reactions?
Nicely done. Energy is a solid answer.
Which process involves the splitting of large nuclei?
Well picked. Nuclear fission is the correct answer.
The most penetrating form of nuclear radiation is dash. Valid point. Gamma rays is true.
What is the main product of nuclear fusion in the sun? Smart pick. Helium is the correct choice.
Which nuclear decay emission consists of energy only?
Correct. Gamma radiation is the right answer.
Which form of energy are X-rays and ultraviolet light?
Smart pick. Electromagnetic is the correct choice.
A nuclear power plant uses dash to create electricity.
Great thinking. Fission is the right choice.
In nuclear chemistry, an atom is referred to as a dash.
Nice work. You chose nuclide and it is correct. Theta turns into Pa. What type of nuclear decay occurred?
Strong choice. Beta is the right answer.
All the major nuclear accidents were a result of what?
You got it. Your choice. Faulty cooling systems is right.
In a nuclear reactor, atoms of a uranium are forced to.
Well reasoned. Break apart is the correct choice.
The energy from the sun is created by a process called.
On track. Nuclear fusion is the correct answer.
Reactions that affect the nucleus of an atom are called.
Smart move. Nuclear reactions is an accurate answer. Stars are the result of gravitational pull on gases and...
Well picked. Nuclear fusion is the correct answer.
In a nuclear reactor, the radioisotope U-235 serve as... Great job. Fissionable material is the accurate answer.
Site of the worst nuclear accident in the United States.
Nicely done. 3 Mile Island is a solid answer. What do nuclear power plants generate electricity from?
Well done. Nuclear fission is the right choice.
When nuclear decay, massive amounts of dash is released.
Good job. Your answer energy works well here.
In a nuclear reactor, what absorbs fast-moving neutrons?
Right again. Control rods is a valid answer.
A nuclear reaction involves what 2 parts of the atom?
Nice selection. Protons and neutrons is the correct and valid answer. What nuclear process occurs in the sun and other stars?
Exactly. Fusion makes sense, and it is right choice.
Types of nuclear reactions include fission, fusion, and...
Perfect.
Transmutation is the correct choice. In which field did Oppenheimer leave an indelible mark? Bravo, physics is the answer.
What is the function of shielding in a nuclear reactor?
You're right. To contain radiation is the correct answer.
The source of power in a nuclear power plant comes from. solid response. Splitting uranium nuclei is a valid choice. The belt of nuclear stability ends with the element dash.
Right choice. Bismuth is the best answer.
Which of the following does not describe nuclear energy?
Good thinking. High carbon emission is the right answer.
What is the splitting of nucleus into smaller fragments?
Excellent. Fission is a brilliant choice.
What are the three main branches of science used in medicine?
Excellent choice. Biology, chemistry, physics is the right answer.
Nuclear fission relies on starting and maintaining a dash.
You chose a chain reaction, and it is correct.
Which part of nuclear power plant turns water into steam?
Valid point. Steam generator is true.
The fuel of a fission reactor in a nuclear power plant is...
Clear logic. Your choice uranium-235 is sound and 100% true.
In what country did the Fukushima nuclear accident occur?
Correct response. Japan is the most accurate answer.
What is the most reactive nuclear particle? Sharp thinking. Gamma is the right choice. The splitting of the nucleus of an atom, releasing energy.
Smart move. Nuclear fission reaction is an accurate answer.
What is the primary fuel used in nuclear fission reactors?
Well reasoned. Uranium-235 is the correct choice.
During fission, some of the nuclear mass is converted into...
You're right. Energy is the correct answer.
Are making nuclear weapons a pro or con of nuclear energy?
You got it. Your choice can be both is right.
What type of material surrounds most nuclear power plants?
Strong choice. Concrete is the right answer.
The rate at which nuclear decay takes place is measured by...
Great job. A radioisotope's half-life is the accurate answer.
What is the process of releasing nuclear radiation called?
Great thinking. Radioactive decay is the right choice.
Known as the force that holds protons and neutrons together.
On track, nuclear force is the correct answer.
The process used to determine the age of rocks and fossils.
Well picked. Carbon dating is the correct answer.
Dash is the conversion of one element into another element.
Good thinking. Nuclear transmutation is the right answer.
Which of the following is a source of background radiation?
Good job. Your answer, Rox, works well here.
What is considered to be the worst nuclear disaster to date?
Nice selection. Chernobyl is the correct and valid answer.
Which of the following is not an example of nuclear fission?
Nice work. You chose the sun and it is correct.
Which of the following is a possible use for nuclear energy?
Bravo. All of the above is the answer.
Which of the following elements will undergo nuclear fusion?
Correct response. Hydrogen is the most accurate answer. What is the term for an ongoing series of nuclear reactions?
Solid response. Chain reaction is a valid choice.
What process is used to make energy in nuclear power plants?
Exactly. Fission makes sense and it is right choice.
What type of nuclear reaction naturally occurs in the stars?
You chose fusion, and it is correct.
Unstable nuclei breaks down, releasing energy and dark or particles. Smart pick. Radioactive decay is the correct choice.
These radioactive particles cause the least amount of damage.
Valid point. Alpha is true. In a nuclear reactor, this is used to absorb excess neutrons.
Perfect. Control rods is the correct choice.
Which of the following terms describes all nuclear reactions?
Right again. Transmutation is a valid answer.
What dangerous byproduct is produced by nuclear power plants?
Excellent. Radioactive waste is a brilliant choice.
The time required for $1.2 of a radioactive substance to decay.
Well done. Half-life is the right choice.
Which nuclear emission involves the release of helium nuclei?
Excellent choice. Alpha is the right answer. This individual won the 1911 Nobel Peace Prize for Chemistry.
Right choice. Marie Curie is the best answer.
What kind of nuclear reaction occurs in nuclear power plants?
Clear logic. Your choice fission is sound and 100% true.
Which process do hydrogen atoms use to make the sun's energy?
Nicely done. Nuclear fusion is a solid answer.
Which is the splitting of a large nucleus into smaller nuclei?
Sharp thinking. Nuclear fission is the right choice.
What is the study of changes to the nucleus of an atom called?
Correct. Nuclear chemistry is the right answer.
The name for protons and neutrons in nuclear chemistry is dash.
Right choice. Nucleons is the best answer.
What is the function of the control rods in a nuclear reactor?
Great job. Absorb neutrons is the accurate answer.
What is the principle behind the operation of a hydrogen bomb?
Sharp thinking. Nuclear fusion is the right choice.
What type of nuclear decay releases energy, but not a particle?
Clear logic. Your choice gamma decay is sound and 100% true.
This reaction involves changes to the nucleus of a single atom. Solid response. Nuclear reaction is a valid choice. Radioactive particles that cause the most damage are known as.
Well done. Gamma is the right choice.
What is emitted in the nuclear transmutation 20 Sal 24 net? Strong choice. An alpha particle is the right answer.
Which force would be stronger in an atom with a small nucleus?
Exactly. Strong nuclear forces make sense, and it is right choice.
Nuclear energy uses dash to turn turbines to power a generator.
Valid point. Steam is true.
Chemical reaction rates dash, and nuclear decay rates are dash.
Smart move. Very constant is an accurate answer.
What is the name of the machine that produces nuclear medicine?
Well reasoned. Cyclotron is the correct choice.
Which of the following is a typical product of nuclear fission?
Smart pick. Radiation is the correct choice.
Which process is used by nuclear power plants to produce energy?
Nicely done. Nuclear fission is a solid answer.
The emission of a particle or energy from an unstable nucleus is. Excellent choice. Nuclear decay is the right answer. Splitting of a nucleus into two nuclei with smaller mass numbers. Well picked. Fission is the correct answer.
In a nuclear reactor, electricity is produced from what element?
Nice selection. Uranium-235 is the correct and valid answer.
Which of the following describes uranium spontaneously decaying?
You got it. Your choice, natural transmutation, is right.
This is when scientists split the nuclei of atoms with neutrons.
Excellent. Nuclear fission is a brilliant choice. Which type of reaction changes the identity of the atom element?
Good thinking. Nuclear is the right answer.
The process in which some substances spontaneously emit radiation.
Perfect. Radioactivity is the correct choice.
An instrument used for detecting and measuring ionizing radiation.
You're right. Geiger counter is the correct answer.
Transmutation does not occur in which of these nuclear processes?
Correct. Gamma decay is the right answer.
Which environmental issue occurred in 1986 in Chernobyl, Ukraine? Correct response. Nuclear power plant explosion is the most accurate answer.
Which type of nuclear radiation can be stopped by thick concrete? Nice work. You chose gamma rays, and it is correct. The type of nuclear emission that is electromagnetic radiation is. Good job. Your answer gamma works well here.
The high energy yields created by nuclear fission are due to dash.
Bravo. Chain reactions is the answer.
What is the conversion that happens during all nuclear reactions?
Right again. Mass into energy is a valid answer. This type of particle can penetrate paper, but not aluminum foil.
Great thinking. Beta is the right choice.
Which of the following nuclear emissions is the slowest particle? Air. You chose alpha, and it is correct.
What force would be the strongest in an atom with a large nucleus? On track. Weak nuclear forces is the correct answer. Which produces more energy dash nuclear fission or nuclear fusion?
Right again. Fusion is a valid answer.
Cobalt-60 and iodine-131 are radioactive isotopes that are used in.
Nice work. You chose medical procedures, and it is correct. When 59Q undergoes electron capture, what is the nuclear product?
Excellent choice. He singled me out is the right answer.
What product does a nuclear power plant produce for its customers? Clear logic. Your choice electricity is sound and 100% true. Nuclear reactors rely on which nuclear process to generate energy?
Smart move.
Nuclear fission is an accurate answer.
The time taken for half of an amount of radioactive atoms to decay.
Correct. Half-life is the right answer. Which one causes the number of proton increase after nuclear decay?
On track. Beta emission is the correct answer.
Which type of nuclear radiation can be stopped by a piece of paper?
You chose alpha particles, and it is correct.
The most penetrating or most dangerous form of nuclear radiation is
Valid point. Gamma is true.
which nuclear reaction occurs in large atoms and breaks them apart. Solid response. Fission is a valid choice. A continuous series of nuclear fission reactions is called a dash.
Well picked. Nuclear chain reaction is the correct answer.
Energy in the sun is produced as a result of nuclear dash reactions. Perfect. Fusion is the correct choice. Which force holds protons and neutrons together in the atom nucleus? Great thinking. Strong nuclear force is the right choice.
Nuclear radiation that occurs naturally in the environment and safe.
Right choice. Background radiation is the best answer.
Uranium-235 will break apart when hit with a neutron is an example of.
Good job. Your answer, nuclear fission, works well here. What is the combining of smaller nuclei into a larger nucleus called? Nice selection. Nuclear fusion is the correct and valid answer.
The United States program to build the nuclear bomb was called DASH.
Correct response. The Manhattan Project is the most accurate answer. The nuclear process by which two or more atomic nuclei join together.
You're right. Fusion is the correct answer.
When two nuclei combine to form a new element, this process is called.
Bravo! Fusion is the answer. Which nuclear particle is radioactive that we use for nuclear plants? Cool.
Well done. Castrate is the right choice. What type of nuclear decay requires thick lead or concrete to stop it?
Exactly. Gamma radiation makes sense, and it is right choice.
The nuclear process occurring at a nuclear power plant is called what? Sharp thinking. Nuclear fission is the right choice.
Nuclear energy is energy released from a dash during nuclear reactions.
Well reasoned. Nucleus is the correct choice.
Letter notation derived from element name found on the periodic table.
You got it. Your choice chemical symbol is right.
Which city was the second nuclear bomb dropped on 9th August 1945?
Nicely done. Nagasaki is a solid answer.
The nuclear notation for the aluminium-28 isotope would be written as
Excellent. 2813 Al is a brilliant choice.
what type of nuclear decay particle is actually a special helium atom? Good thinking. Alpha is the right answer.
What type of nuclear decay particle can be stopped by a sheet of paper?
Smart pick. Alpha is the correct choice. What type of nuclear decay particle is actually a high-energy electron?
But
Great job. Beta is the accurate answer. What is the process that decreases the number of slow-moving electrons?
Strong choice. Nuclear moderation is the right answer.
During a nuclear reaction, new elements are made due to a change in dash.
exactly. Atomic number makes sense, and it is right choice. What is the process of splitting atoms to release usable stored energy?
Sharp thinking. Nuclear fission is the right choice.
Which type of nuclear reaction do we use in nuclear power plants today? Great job! Nuclear fission is the accurate answer. Process whereby a heavy atomic nucleus splits into two lighter fragments. Solid response. Nuclear fission is a valid choice. What is the combination of two nuclei to form a nucleus of greater mass? Well picked. Fusion is the correct answer. What is considered to be the most serious nuclear accident in US history? Great thinking. 3 Mile Island is the right choice.
Which radioactive isotope is used to generate energy in nuclear reactors?
Right choice. Uranium-238 is the best answer. Which type of nuclear decay involves the emission of a helium-4 nucleus?
Smart move. Alpha is an accurate answer. Combining nuclei to form a larger nucleus, absorbing or releasing energy.
Excellent. Nuclear fusion reaction is a brilliant choice.
Which nuclear particle is emitted when a neutron is turned into a proton?
Well done. Beta is the right choice.
What are two isotopes that are used in a nuclear reactor for electricity?
U-235 and Pu-239 is a solid answer.
A nuclear reaction where a nucleus splits into two smaller nuclei is dash. You got it. Your choice fission is right. The rate of a nuclear reaction is controlled in a nuclear power plant by. Valid point. Control rods is true. In which type of nuclear reaction do nuclei split to form smaller nuclei? Bravo! Fission is the answer. The emission of rays or particles from the nucleus of an atom is known as Perfect. Radioactivity is the correct choice. The time it takes for half of the radioactive nuclei in a sample to decay.
Good job. Your answer half-life works well here. The smallest and highest energy type of nuclear radiation is known as a...
Good thinking. Gamma particle is the right answer. What is the splitting of one larger atom into two or more smaller ones called? You're right. Nuclear fission is the correct answer.
A force that acts between protons and neutrons of atoms is called a dash torque.
Strong choice. Nuclear force is the right answer.
In a nuclear reactor, what absorbs neutrons to slow down the chain reaction?
Nice selection. Control rods is the correct and valid answer.
A nuclear chain reaction occurs when excess dash collide with other nuclei.
Clear logic. Your choice neutrons is sound and 100% true.
What is the primary process that generates energy in a nuclear power plant?
Correct response. Nuclear fission is the most accurate answer. Which of the following particles is commonly involved in nuclear reactions? On track. Neutrons is the correct answer. Which type of radioactivity is in the form of waves rather than particles? Right again. Gamma is a valid answer. A series of continuous nuclear fission reactions is called a dash reaction. Nice work. You chose chain and it is correct. The attractive force that binds protons and neutrons together in the nucleus. Well reasoned. The strong nuclear force is the correct choice. What is the device that uses nuclear reactions for destructive means called?
Excellent choice. Nuclear weapon is the right answer. The time required for half a sample of radioactive nuclei to decay is called. You chose half-life. And it is correct!
13 airs, the combining of two smaller nuclei into a larger nucleus, is called dash.
Smart pick. Nuclear fusion is the correct choice.
What is the power plant that uses nuclear reactions to create energy called?
Correct? Nuclear reactor is the right answer. What is the change in the nuclear charge when an atom emits alpha radiation? Excellent. Decreases by 2 is a brilliant choice.
What is the process by which a heavy nucleus splits into two lighter nuclei?
Good thinking. Nuclear fission is the right answer.
The following are usually used as control rods in a nuclear reactor, except...
Correct. Lithium is the right answer. Which of the following nuclear emissions has the greatest penetrating power? Nice selection. Gamma is the correct and valid answer. Which of these types of nuclear radiation has the greatest penetrating power?
Correct response. Gamma is the most accurate answer.
Which of the following elements is commonly used in nuclear fission reactors?
Well picked. Uranium is the correct answer. What kind of a nuclear reaction changes the number of protons in the nucleus? Exactly. All of the above makes sense and it is right choice. What type of nuclear decay is it when an electron is emitted from the nucleus? Nicely done. Beta decay is a solid answer. What is coming out of the tops of the cooling towers of a nuclear power plant? Valid point. Water vapor is true. The best capable alternative source which can meet the future energy demand is... Solid response. Nuclear power plant is a valid choice. Nuclear radiation refers to charged particles or energy emitted by an unstable. Great job. Nucleus is the accurate answer. Elements larger than hydrogen are generated in the sun through the process of... Strong choice. Nuclear fusion is the right answer. Shows the chemical symbol, the mass number, and the atomic number of the isotope. Right again. Nuclear notation is a valid answer. In a nuclear reactor, a radioactive uranium is important and serves as the dash. Smart move. Fool is an accurate answer.
The process of nuclear change in an atom of radioactive material is called dash.
Great thinking. Nuclear decay is the right choice.
Unwanted radioactive products formed during a nuclear reactions are called dash.
On track. Nuclear wastes is the correct answer. What happens to the nuclear force as the number of protons in an atom increases? Well done. It decreases is the right choice.
In this reaction, usually only the outermost electrons participate in reactions.
Sharp thinking. Chemical reaction is the right choice. What is the main environmental concern associated with nuclear fission reactors? You chose radioactive waste. And it is correct. What is the term for a change that occurs in the nucleus of an unstable isotope? You got it? Your choice nuclear reaction is right.
Control rods in nuclear reactor block the spread of a chain reaction by blocking. Well reasoned. Neutrons is the correct choice. Nuclear reactions involve the dash, whereas chemical reactions involve the dash. Nice work. You chose nucleus, electrons, and it is correct.
Which of the 4 fundamental forces of the universe holds the nucleus together?
Right choice. Strong nuclear force is the best answer.
The time taken for half of a sample of radioactive material to decay is the dash.
Bravo, half-life is the answer. What is the fusing combining of 2 or more lighter atoms into a larger one called? Clear logic? Your choice nuclear fusion is sound and 100% true. In the nuclear transmutation represented by 239 what is the product? Good job, your answer core 242 works well here. What type of nuclear decay emits a positive electron from the nucleus of an atom? Perfect. Positron emission is the correct choice.
The temperature levels in a nuclear reactor are maintained primarily by the us of.
You're right. Coolants is the correct answer. Which nuclear reaction occurs in small atoms and combines 2 atoms to become one? Excellent choice. Fusion is the right answer. The type of nuclear radiation that can penetrate farthest through matter is called.
Smart pick. Gamma rays is the correct choice.
How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format.
Well picked. Contact Narayan Chengder is the correct answer.